How are you, Tom? Good.
Yeah, I'm very
Hey, good. What's your name? Kip, I'm Christian Myra. I say I win the place. Can I ask you to leave? I know you guys.
Yeah.
Oh, you do? And another gentleman. Yeah. Very good. Yeah. So the Walz campaign has you have a standing offer with them. I've been told from them. Okay. Have you been in all the other ones? Oh yeah. Well, I'm not. I don't know what. Have you been in other events here?
And you're the owner here, so you're the opportunity investor. What is that?
Yeah. So who do you work for? Who do you work for?
I work for a couple clients.
Oh, you do? Okay. For who you're
It's a number of them at this point, but they all.
Okay, well, I wasn't aware. I would be very weird to think. Yeah, I mean, so very much. You can stay here and you can get your cameras out here because I don't want my company associated with anything. So if you want to take your cameras out, you can stay here.
I'm going to have to ask
Has to leave. Because I own the place. I don't want my company brand associated with anything that I'm not in control of. So
Yeah. So that
if you
seems
want to stay here, that's fine.
right. I understand. That just seems very odd. I've been.
Good.
Are we?
Yes, thank you. Real pleasure to meet you. This place is awesome. I said when I came in, I said, smell. Well, congratulations. Big undertaking.
Yes, it's a slow process.
We always have a big display of this. Oh,
Yeah, I thought it was really great.
So what I found, I was, I donated small. I got a couple of business partners involved. We actually got a value for marketing and branding. Yeah. So those dogs went taking our
I noticed
Oh yeah.
That's you. That is okay. I was wondering that when I saw the name.
I knew that I was going to ruin my welcome
I'm still sure, so I did about 11 and a half years. I'm actually
but I told you,
yeah, that's
Well, so we had this space especially for us. This is our event. The owners asked you to be for us.
Event with a public official running for public office. Everyone's game every time.
My understanding is that if the owner asks you to leave, you
I
have to
understand.
leave.
And representatives, are you telling me that I need to leave this?
No, you're fine. What I am going to say though is that you guys know that you had to do the tape on me on Halloween when you're doing the fundraiser. But just so we know, Eric,
just so they, with the RTA operator, I'm fine with it. So, but just so you know, there is an ethic behind doing it and an ethic of what you do. But when you work with the same people, you're when the RGA takes that and does that, just so we know, I'm good with it.
I've always been contracting. I found that to be very disturbing.
No, I appreciate that. I do appreciate that, and I know that. But I've always thought, I've always been really good about that. That one seems, it's just a suggestion.
I'm not familiar with the circumstances.
How are you? Good. Good luck. Yeah, so if you want to get talk to you got the ultimate competition. Well, if you at least I'm not looking for any publicity.
I have no
so.
intention of publicizing the business. I don't think anyone will.
Okay. Well, okay, if you're not, then
It's entirely focused on nothing. If someone knows you're here for records,
okay, all right.
I'm familiar with it quite well.
You know how many signed this stuff? You know how many signed this song even after we lost the nomination? Like 150. We lost all. Pissed when they get ripped off.
I live in Wilmington Township, just down the road here, and I'm fifth generation here at Spring Grove. And really proud of what we got going on here in Spring Grove, and this place, this distillery here, bringing folks to the town and bringing economic development money into the town, and it's really great for Spring Grove. It's great for our community, it's great for Houston County, and it's great for Minnesota. So I wanted to bring Congressman Walz here. Of course, I'm running for the State House, but this event is for Congressman Walz. And he's going to speak a little bit, but one of the reasons I really like Congressman Walz, he's represented us in the U.S. Congress for 11 years now, right, Tim? That's right. I think he's done a pretty good job. I think he's done a really good job. So now he's running for governor, because we need a governor who can look towards a long-term, look toward long-term problem or solutions to our problems rather than just short-term solutions to problems. And that's why I'm running against Representative Davis as well, because he looks toward the short-term and not towards the long-term. And as a younger person in rural Minnesota, we got to look out for my generation when we get a little older, and the folks in school and some of your grandkids live here, and we got to look out for the future generations. So 5 generations from now, we could still have this here, and our ancestors could be doing the same things that we're doing, living successful lives in small town communities like this. So I think Tim has a great vision for Minnesota, so he's going to talk about that. And thank you, Christian, too, for hosting this event. Christian's a veteran, school board member with me, and all-around great guy. So, Tim, take it away.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you to Thomas for everything. Thank you for your passion for Minnesota, your passion for greater Minnesota, your service. Many around the state have noticed it. It's a vision, it's optimistic, it's hopeful. It's what I think why we gather here tonight. You all came out on a Sunday night. You've got things you can do. But you came here tonight because you love your state and you love your country. And you recognize that gathering in a place like this is something that billions of people around the world can only dream of. We can gather with our neighbors and talk about how we want to govern. And the thing that I'm always most heartened by on this is we don't gather to complain, although trust me, there's plenty of that to be done. I'm going back to DC this week to deal with an abomination of a tax bill that will have generational implications. The public hates it. My Republican colleagues know that. It will have massive implications on things I care about, like the debt and deficit. We can't ever be told that that doesn't matter. But it's not investing in the things that Thomas talked about, that he and Kristen talked about. Serving on a school board is, in my opinion, one of the most noble and one of the most important elected positions that you can aspire to. And so I'm appreciative of that. And we've got a lot of folks in here who ran as candidates. John, thank you. They put themselves out front. Steve's around here somewhere. And I would have to mention Steve and I were talking, Steve and Linda and I, we gathered at a small gathering back in April of 2005 where I came as a high school teacher and said I was going to run against Gil Goodman for the 1st Congressional District, and they were there, and they believed either you were the most optimistic people in the world or you had foresight into this. But what I knew, what you knew, and what I knew at the time, and what everyone here understands was if we're nervous about the future or we're concerned about the direction our country's going, it's our responsibility to fix it. Not only is it our responsibility to fix it, it's our privilege to be able to fix it. It's our generation. Kristen, thank you for so many things. Thank you for opening up your space. It's unique, it's beautiful, it's hopeful. The idea that locally grown products from one of the most beautiful places in the world, right here at home, would keep that home. Using things, as you said, value-added USDA grants that make sense out of the Farm Bill, something I've advocated for. I think when we understand when you create wealth out of the earth, whether it's through farming or whether it's through timber products or whether it's through mining, the best thing we can do is keep those products closer to home, refine them, and add the value added. So that's where the real economic growth comes. And again, thank you for your service. I said I was going to, I can't ever resist doing it. It's just like habitual on this of ruining my welcome of saying, go Army, beat Navy. But thank you for your service. He flew and I walked in that. So we always said that you knew who did better on the ASVAB test. But thank you all. And for all of you, there's old friends in here. Thank you for the privilege of representing you these last 11 years in the United States Congress. I don't think there's a greater responsibility or a greater honor that you can get as an American citizen as having your neighbors select you to go and speak for them on the issues that impact them. Issues of life and death with war, issues of how we care for our veterans, issues of what our agriculture and our environmental policy looks like, how do we educate our children, all of those things that matter to us. And I've always felt that it's my responsibility, first and foremost, to conduct myself in a manner that reflects upon how you live. And many of you have seen that. I've not thrown firebombs. I will not normalize the behavior, especially of the current occupant of the White House. When the president lowers the bar on the standards of what should be as an elected official, I will call those things out, but I think it's incumbent upon all of us and I'm here tonight to talk about that. I think this administration and what we're seeing in elected officials right now in the House, in Congress, and the Senate, and even here in the State House and the State Senate, is opening up a huge opportunity to change how we govern, to provide an aspirational message, to start talking about what does the next 50 years look like, and how do we build a sense of community, not just in Spring Grove, not just in Houston County, not just in southern Minnesota, but across an entire state. How do we make sure that what they have done, and we know they've done it on purpose, if you can divide people further and further and then cobble together electoral little allegiances to win elections, that's what's been done. So divide us racially, divide us economically, and I said this pains me deeply as a geography teacher, dividing us geographically, making it that there is an incompatible separation between greater Minnesota and the Twin Cities area is simply despicable. It tears apart the fabric of who we are. It doesn't recognize that there are legitimate differences. Spring Grove looks different than it's going to look like in downtown Minneapolis tonight. That is not a value judgment, that is a statement of fact. And how we govern needs to reflect those differences. How we govern in terms of where does the money go? How do we divide wealth, and when it goes to making sure the communities have what they need to educate their children. So I'm here tonight, first of all, as a thank you to this community. Thank you to all of you for the support you've given me over the years. But to talk about my decision and what Peggy and I see along with you of how we win and make sure that we hold the governor's office in Minnesota. I'm making no bones about it. We are not going down the road where Wisconsin's gone down. We're not going down the road that Michigan or Ohio or Kansas has gone down. Not because they've gone down a Republican road, but they've gone down an economic dead end. They've hurt the investments in their schools, they've hurt the investments in there, and all the indicators show that. There is a reason that Minnesota is prospering, because we have had the idea that when we invest in these things, it makes a difference. Now, we've been fighting tooth and nail in the state legislature. Mark Dayton has done what he could do. I'm here to take the message that the vast majority of our neighbors, whether they voted for President Trump or not, are good-hearted people that want to see their communities thrive, and that if we talk to them in a manner that we bring them in, not only can we win an election, but we can govern afterwards. And so when I looked at the big picture of where things are at, there's obvious to all of us, at least in the coming years, the big decisions for the state of Minnesota, like what are we going to do about health care, what are we going to do about education, what are we going to do about transportation. We're going to need the federal government's partnership in all of those. We're not going to get much of it over the next few years. So the state of Minnesota needs to lead on these things. We've always innovated. We've always led forward on that. We've had more people insured than any other state. We've been able to hold healthcare costs down in many cases, and we've innovated in wellness care. We've had some of the best public schools, but all of us need to recognize we've got gaps in our education. We have an opportunity or achievement gap for children of color that is the largest in the nation. We incarcerate more juveniles of color as opposed to white juveniles than any other state in the union. Those are the types of things that are not only moral dead ends, they're economic dead ends, because that's where the workforce of the future comes from, and we want to see where that state goes. So with that being in mind, I'm coming back, and Peggy Flanagan, my running mate, will tell you a little bit about we believe we give us the best chance not just to win an election, making sure that the Republicans do not win this seat and take us down the formula that all of us can tell. I could run as a Republican, I could tell you their platform. We're going to make sure you can't unionize and are, democratically organizing your workplace. We're going to cut taxes to the wealthiest. We're going to voucherize your schools, and we're going to tell people that we can't invest in education because there's no money. I could go right down the platform, and we're going to do it in the name of freedom for you or whatever it might be. We know where that leads us. And what we need to do is make the message to people. What we're going to do is we're going to provide true freedom of opportunity for people, making sure the groundwork of those things are laid so that every public school, whether it's from Spring Grove to South St. Paul to International Falls, has an opportunity for those children, one, to become the best they can be, two, to become educated citizens so they can participate in democracy, and three, they can go out and get a job and pay their taxes so that we can retire when we hit Social Security age or whatever it might be. That's kind of how in Spring Grove or St. Paul, government has one role in that. I do not see the role of government as the governor dictating, and we as Democrats do this all the time, come to you with 10-point economic plans. We always have better plans than the Republicans, and we continue to lose elections. It's not about that. It's about the trust that people have in it, the heart that they have, how we talk to people and listen to where they're at. And Peggy and I believe that we've been able to do that. In my time in Congress, I've found, and I'm very proud of this summer in July, the New York Times wrote a story, and they said, if you want to know how Congress is supposed to work, look at the VA committee. That's me and Phil Rowe. a Republican from Tennessee, and as I tell people, we don't agree on much. I can barely understand it. I need a translator of where it's going. And Johnny Isaacson, a Republican from Georgia, and John Tester, a Democrat from Montana. It's the four of us working on issues that matter. When people say, oh, it's the VA, everybody likes veterans, it should be easy. It's the second largest branch of the federal government. Tomorrow, or Tuesday, when I get back to DC, there will be another attempt to privatize the VA, removing resources from a place where 94% of veterans say they want their primary care, with an understanding that we should be using community-based care for things like checkups or getting your blood tested or whatever, but not at the expense of draining it away. We know this old story. We'll voucherize the schools, and then when the public schools don't have enough money to hire teachers or retain or to fix their roof, we will tell people that government doesn't work. It's that old adage. My Republican colleagues run for office on government doesn't work, then they get elected and prove it by not getting anything done. Our job on this, and I think in the state of Minnesota, is to make that case, bring those folks together, and invest in a way that makes sense to them. Tell people where their tax dollars are going. Tell people why the LGA makes a difference. Tell people why if we build transit in Minneapolis, St. Paul, that's not the reason the highways aren't being built out here. The reason they're not being built out here is because the Republicans are afraid to actually have an honest conversation of what it takes to invest in infrastructure that was invested by the previous generation. And allowing people to figure out that if we allow more people to buy into Minnesota Care, maybe we're able to lower some of these premiums on people. Because I'm very proud that we were able to get more people onto the ACA, but as I said all along, it was going to take improvements along there. And if we've got folks in the individual market who are paying more than they can afford to pay, that's not good enough for getting them health care insurance. Or if we have a hospital closes and consolidates care and someone's not close enough to get to a doctor. Those are all things that can be solved at the state level. They're all things that can be solved if the public believes that it's in their best interest. And I think something that we've missed all along and that can allow us to make this happen is let's make it politically impossible for people to do things like shut down the government, to do things like last year. Just be very clear about this. This is as stark as this, and Thomas will talk about this, I'm sure. Last year when they were doing the budget, budgets are two things. Budgets are fiscal documents, and budgets are a reflection of our values. You cannot separate the two. What you put your money into is what you value. And so last year, when we were trying to expand pre-K all-day kindergarten to making sure, and the pre-K work to make sure a child is ready, we know that for every dollar we spend, we get $12 back if we invest in early childhood. If we close that achievement gap, we spend less on remedial services, less on social services, less on criminal justice services, and children go on a path to graduate sooner and get into the workforce. We know that's true. We needed to find some more money last year, and it's a decision in government. We needed $300 million more to expand this program into areas where we needed to. The Republicans said we don't have enough money. We're not willing to raise taxes. And they said, well, we could get the money from where else? No. So what they made the decision to do was, they made the decision to reduce the tax on premium cigars, saving those companies $300 million and the people who buy premium cigars on 10 cents a cigar, whatever it ended up being, rather than investing in early childhood education. I would make the case to you is, I will stand in front of any room, I will stand in front of the Republican Central Party meeting in Minneapolis and make the case to them that that was not a really good fiscal decision they made, and it might be smarter for us to keep that on those premium cigars and invest in early childhood education, because all of us will make more money and there'll be more workers for our workforce. That's how I think we go about this. Peggy and I want to do that. Peggy Flanagan, for some of you who don't know, is she's from St. Louis Park. She ran the Children's Defense Fund in Minneapolis. She's an expert in early childhood education, one of these things we talk about. She was a member of the Minneapolis School Board. She got elected to the State House from Brooklyn Park, and I think she is a fabulous legislator. She's a mother of 4.5-year-old Siobhan, her little girl, and she is a smart, committed legislator from St. Louis Park. Also, and I think we sometimes get accused of this in the Democratic Party, that it's about identity politics. Our politics are about inclusion, about everybody being included, about everybody having a seat at the table. When Peggy and I say the people most impacted by the decisions we make in government must be sitting at the table. That's going to include people who have children in schools. That's going to include businesses who, when they come to me and tell me that they're worried about a regulation that may not be doing what we think it's going to do, but adds cost to their business, we should listen to them. We should believe that they're telling us the right things and see if there's a way we can pick that out. But the one thing that's really interesting about Peggy, I think, about bringing a perspective to it, she talks about how she and I look like Minnesota. How we look like a spread of where Minnesota's at. This idea of an urban female legislator and a rural male legislator. Someone, as many of you know in here, I taught school, coached the football team, served in the Army, and did not expect to be in this position, but I think my life path followed where many of yours were. I didn't plan on being in government, but my life showed me what it means to try and figure out when someone in your family dies, how do you make sure that there's programs in place so they don't fall into poverty? How do you make sure that children have a quality, like I have a quality high school education that inspired me to try and be a quality high school teacher for them. But the one thing I think is interesting about this, Peggy Flanagan's also the first woman of color to ever run on a statewide ticket in Minnesota. And when we're elected in January of, and sworn in January of 2019, Peggy Flanagan, who is the proud daughter of the White Nation of Ojibwe, will be the highest elected Native American woman in American history. And I think from Minnesota, this idea that all of us have a role in this, all of us have something to say, all of us bring something different, and all of us bring those qualities. And as Peggy said, both she and I, and like many of you in here, it was smart government that kept our families healthy, that had a safety net there when we needed it, that provided quality education, created jobs and opportunities that if we worked hard and used our talents, we could achieve something here, and we could maybe add something to make our communities a little better. That's the type of politics we should be talking about. That's the type of inclusion we should be talking about. And that is exactly the type of thing that I think if we do, Minnesota is well positioned to have that vision of what does the Minnesota horizon look like? How do we make sure our workforce is prepared? Because we're going to have a worker shortage. How do we make sure that we're innovating in a way that in Minnesota, the way we tackle the healthcare issue is, and all of us know this, that the front end of many of this, we spend all our time talking about insurance, when we should be talking about how do we prevent diabetes, how do we prevent heart disease, how do we incentivize so that people have those opportunities, how do we make sure people have access to locally grown foods and things that make a difference, seeing the bigger picture, but also with an understanding, you can take care of yourself every day, you can eat well, and by the grace of God, you get cancer. That should not be the end of your family. That should not lose your house, and you should not be fighting to figure out from an insurance company if they're going to pay for the treatment you need. All of those things are possible, and I say this, people ask me all the time, how do you work out there in Washington? I'm so fearful of the future. If I were really honest, I would say you should be really fearful. I work with these people, and they scare me of what they're doing. But what I know is the antidote for this, and I saw it in witness. I went to the Women's March the day after the inauguration, and I tell people this, I stood on the platform both of those days. The Women's March was bigger. You can be very sure of that. It was much bigger. But I was down there with some women, and there was a woman marching, and she was saying, I can't believe I'm fighting this crap all over again. And then she turned to me and she said, and it's just as much a privilege today as it was then. And I think for me, and I think what Peggy knows, and I think it's probably why all of you are here, I was older before I figured this out. I assumed that when you fight, and I think it's a progressive thing to think about. If you want to use that term progressive in, I would rather be progressive than regressive. I would rather move progress than sit still. I would rather improve people's lives than just hope things happen. With that being the description, I think progressive things, you solve a problem and you move on to the next one. And I think for me and my family, living on the shoulders of giants who made it so that my wife as a public school teacher, when she got pregnant, did not lose her job and get fired from her job because that had been done forward. Or the ability to look at the civil rights movement, and I always saw that as a historical document of John Lewis and Martin Luther King Jr. and all the folks who were involved in that, or the women's rights movements, or any of those things. Those were fights that were in the history books and they were done. Well, all of you realize this. I was just a little slower, I guess, maybe to figure it out. Every generation's responsibility is to refight those fights. And every generation's opportunity is to add something to that, to add more equality towards a more perfect union. And here in Minnesota, we have a state that's going to work. We have incredible natural resources. We have incredible talent in people. We've got all of the pieces there to have us shine up. And my vision for you is, we're not ever going to be Chicago, New York on those sizes, but what we can be is a state that take all those measures, unemployment rates, per capita income, number of people who are insured. We should strive to be the best in all those, with the idea that if you do that, I think the measure of any government, any society, any community is, how happy are your people? What is the opportunity for people of all walks of life, all economic opportunities, to measure their life in happiness? Because I think it does come down to it. Most people want to turn on their damn TV and not see the drama, not see the fighting. What they'd like to know is their kids are going to go to school, with food in their stomach. They're going to get there safely. They're going to learn something. They're going to be able to have a little extra money to buy some Christmas gifts or whatever they're doing, and they're going to spend time with family. And that they're going to try and see that maybe things can get a little better each day. That's what we can do. Government's not going to do that for all of them, but I can tell you what I do think the governor's job is, amongst anything, is setting the tone of respect and dialogue, setting the idea that we're in this together, being the person who can bring different groups of people to the table to talk about those solutions, and then be measured on whether we're effective or not. So Peggy and I would like to try and earn your support to do that. We have got the support of everyone from Walter Mondale to David Wellstone to R.T. Ryback to the faculty of the colleges and universities of Minnesota have already supported our campaign. We have thousands and thousands of donors in every county in the state. We travel nonstop. We were in Red Wing earlier today. We're going to Winona tonight. We were up in Minneapolis yesterday. Tomorrow I will be at the prison in Stillwater looking at things we can do. As the state is how we see that. How do we do rehabilitation? How do we talk about this idea in America that we're spending more money in some cases on incarceration than we are on higher education? When it happens like that, you lose. And fighting those fights that we need to, ideologically need to fight, and making sure that we're out in every one of those communities talking to people. So I'm grateful for opening up this space. So you can sell today because of Sunday liquor sales, right?
I can.
Yeah. See? We got something done last session. So, and so please, if someone's going to do that, Thomas, thank you. I don't know if you have any questions, comments. What we'd like to do is a couple asks of you. I'd love to be able to get you a caucus for us at the caucuses. We believe it's been 50 years since a Democratic candidate who was endorsed by the DFL won the governor's race in an open seat since Whitney Anderson. We think now is the time. I believe I've earned, certainly from an agricultural and rural perspective, many of you know I talked about, my mom still lives on the farm back home. I graduated from a school with 24 kids in my class. How many are yours?
26 or 27.
That's what I'm talking about. We called you the city kids at that time. So, how many cousins?
Three.
Not bad, that's my story. So I said, and we haven't, and I think I'm serving on the ag committee coming from that, we've not had a greater Minnesota governor, probably since Al Quie, from down here too. Probably haven't had anyone who had an agricultural background. And I think that brings a perspective, but it brings a perspective to understand the economic vision and the wonderful feelings we have towards the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, understanding that's the 17th fastest growing metropolitan area in the country. But when young, talented people are graduating around the country today, they're choosing to go to Austin, Texas, or Portland, Oregon, or Seattle, or to Atlanta. Minneapolis needs to be that place. We need to be that shining North Star. We need to be that place that if you come here and settle with your family, you are going to have wonderful public schools. You're going to have world-class transportation. We're going to have access to broadband in parts of the state that are now making it, as I sat down at the grocery store and did not have any broadband service to send photos and things. Those are things that are not just cute stories. That creates an economic unbalance that the state of Minnesota eventually will end up hurting our economic vitality. So I'm glad to be here with you. I hope we can get you at those caucuses. I hope we can get you, this is what's a good one for us. The state convention in June is in Rochester. So it's just down the way. And we truly believe, and I think by the welcoming of our guests, that the Koch brothers and the Republican Governors Association are turning all their fire on me because they know I will win this race. I will win Greater Minnesota. Peggy and I will be able to have an appeal that goes broader. And the whole goal that they're going to see is just to make sure that we don't do that. They're not going to review what we're talking about. They're not going to do things, they will distort the record of whatever it may be. But I'm proud to stand in front of any of my fellow citizens and tell them why I believe we can represent this state, we can build coalitions, we can get to that place we want to be, and we can do it honestly, without all of the disrespectful rhetoric, and we can get solutions. So I'm glad you're here. If you got any questions, Thomas will be glad to answer them. Right. If you got anything, we'll be glad to have it.
We're
excited about it, it's a good time.
I've got a softball for you.
Any questions from anybody else?
We're not being rude. Our friends are the Republican Party and the Jobs Coalition, who sends people to track wherever I go and say things, which I think is the best part of democracy. It's great. We're having a little bit of run-in because they took a video, edited, totally distorted what I said, and then put that out to fundraise off of it. That is what people hate about politics. So I'll wait and take it later.
Kevin has a question.
Yeah. Good to see you.
I get emails from Otto, Coleman, et cetera.
Yeah.
When are you gonna start, sending out?
Eric?
No shortage of emails.
Where'd they get, I mean, don't you have access to that
Yes.
same list?
We do. We do, so we'll find out. You should be getting them. I thought you were gonna say the thing that I normally get is, I'm so sick and tired of getting your emails. Steve Kemp will give you half of his, so. if you want
I'm
to get
looking
them.
forward to getting you.
No, we have to get them on there. And this is about that, it's about helping us sign up, helping us build our list, helping us get a larger grassroots. I think right now, and again, I don't rest for a minute, all of you have, down here was really great for me, is I don't have to tell you how I'll govern or how I'll conduct myself. I don't have to ask you to have trust in that because you've seen it. I also don't have to ask you to have trust to know that I will bring more energy to this race than anybody else. I am relentless on the work that we're going to do. We will build this. Those are things we need to get you on. We need to continue to expand because that's how we do it. So,
Jim, I think you should emphasize that Minnesota has economically done better than any other state in the country
Right.
out of this recession.
that's right.
We're in Illinois some of the time, we've seen the ruinous results of the tax cutting philosophy down there. We're $1 billion in debt this year. We brag on what's happened up here on Governor Dayton.
Yeah.
And we've seen nationally an attempt to backslide in everything President Obama did. I think
It's going to happen.
if you can't win this, there's going to be the kind of backslide that we've seen in Illinois and other places. So I think along with all these great democratic themes of inclusiveness and growth for the next generation, I don't think we should be bashful about the economic success story we've already had. If you can't keep doing these things, you're going to go in the direction of Illinois, Nebraska, Wisconsin. Some of these other states are economic.
My young campaign team said, our motto should be, it's Walz or Wisconsin, people. So,
I think
you know, Thomas and I have a theory on this. It's the Minnesota Lutheran in us, that if you do a good deed and talk about it, it doesn't count. So, you know how when you put your envelope in, you sure don't want to show that you put any money on what you wrote on it. My mother-in-law was always so mad because my wife would write how much you were giving on the outside of the envelope because there was a little space for it at church. Her mother-in-law said, oh, that's right. No. You just put the check in there quietly. And so, but I agree with you on this. I do think we need to talk about what the difference. And I say this not just because look at us type of thing. I will say this time and time again. If trickle-down economic policies and tax cuts for the wealthiest 1% amongst us created more jobs and economic growth in a fairer, better communities, I'd be the first person to vote for it. There is simply no evidence to support that. There is not a single economist that can show that. All of the top economists, regardless of ideology, will tell you they are going to create debt with this. The growth model that they're predicting, if anything, is incredibly small that will come out of this. And I think we need to be very clear. Stock market gains are fine, but, and I don't want to be disingenuous, if you have a 401k or something, you know, some of those things in there, that you're seeing growth in that, but a lot of that is bubble-wise. The idea, again, that we're going to tax you more for carrying a rucksack than we're going to tax you for carrying interest with this new bill is simply immoral in my mind. We have always believed in progressive taxation. It makes sense. Too much is owed. And the idea is that this isn't that difficult of a philosophy. It's certainly not socialist in any means. If you have a large company and you're hiring a large number of people, we're educating in the public schools a large number of your employees. A large number of your employees are driving on the roads that we all built together to get there, and there's more wear and tear. A lot of companies understand that. They understand the ethic behind that. But I think we just need to make the logical case to people. We are for policies that work, not ideological. And I think we need to not knee-jerk. The one thing I would tell you as a Democrat that I think we let ourselves get pinned into, that we are not pro-business. Because I trust when my Republican friends say they're pro-business, I believe them, but you need to listen carefully. They speak in the singular, one business. It's usually oil or whatever that thing is they want. It's not about a pro-business philosophy that gives everybody an opportunity to see. We see it here in Minnesota. In the last Farm Bill and some of the things we've done, Christine is an example of this, of making sure, and this is what I was proud of, a Republican legislator from Wisconsin who was working with me. And I was talking about streamlining the organic certification process, making sure we got out there and I was saying that there's plenty of room in agriculture for traditional row cropping and organics. I said, as someone who is pro-business, me in the plural, that creating those opportunities and a sense of fairness in the marketplace is government's responsibility, because markets only operate if they can remain fair, otherwise they get distorted. So I was saying, I think this is the truest form of American entrepreneurship. This is the truest form of capitalism, of keeping a fair marketplace for people to get engaged. And that's why the organic market, you saw it on the front page of the Star Tribune today. Guess what? Organics are shooting out the roof because that's what consumers want. And the Republicans on the committee were trying to shoot down my amendment, and they said, oh, Tim's talking sustainability is code word. And I said, code word? Code word for sustainable. Yes, it is. It's code word for sustainable. We want to do this. Everybody wants sustainable land or whatever. And they said, no, it's this moving away from agriculture or whatever. I said, that's not what I'm saying at all. And a Republican legislator stood up and he said, you know what? I'm with Tim on this. We should be celebrating the entrepreneur spirit of people who found a new market, reached out, took a risk, and created new business. This place we're in right here, and this idea of organic agriculture off the land, is something that our Republican colleagues, and they've been right about, touting what's really great about America, that you have that opportunity to do that. And we as Democrats, and I think it goes to what you're saying here, is we need to talk better that it is not bad to be successful. And I think sometimes we get ourselves in a box. We are going to be there for the people in the shadows of society. I will never back down about giving someone a living wage. I will never back down about having a safety net when people are in trouble. That is not handouts, those are hands up. That is not socialism, that's neighborliness. But I think we have to do a better job of listening to those small businesses, listening to those medium and large-sized businesses that are really doing what they need to do. And I think what separated Minnesota, when you go back and look at it, is those large Fortune 500 companies, like the General Mills, like the 3Ms, like whoever they were, there was a sense of corporate philanthropy back to the community that was second to none. They built those infrastructures, they gave back to it, and there was a sense of, yes, we did well, but we're going to give something back to the communities, whether it was building libraries, whether it was building infrastructure and helping with schools. I think that's still alive and well in Minnesota. So I hear what you're saying on that. I do agree that it's different. Mark Dane's right. We're going to have a bit of a challenge with a new budget forecast that's coming up, but we should be able to take that on. And I found that most people are willing to pay their fair share if they believe it's fair and they believe the money is going to something that they believe in. I mean, this is just, almost no one I know is going to see any benefit whatsoever from what they're going to do Tuesday, and they are going to do it. So, yeah. So, well, you're kind. Remain hopeful. I hope I can earn your support. We'll work hard at this. I certainly won't come to you, as I said, with all those 10-point plans, because we need to do that together. This is about governance together. I will not spend my time running for governor bad-mouthing the Republicans. Their actions will speak for themselves in many cases. But what I will try and do is I will try and help listening to folks, hearing their hopes, dreams, and visions of laying out what a Minnesota can be. This state is different, and that's not misplaced pride. This state drew people like myself here as a young professional because it was clear they valued education. And they showed they valued education by one thing is they didn't badmouth teachers and they paid them a living wage. This is a place that valued the idea of innovation by creating jobs, and we're creating in a partnership, state, government, and private businesses. It's a place that valued the livability of our communities by investing in things like walking trails and things. That wasn't just nice to have things. That was nice about that happiness meter that life should be measured by. So we're going to run a great campaign. We've got about 52 days till the precinct caucuses on February 6th. We'd love to get you at those. We'd love to have delegates for us to get there. We think right now we count these. We're significantly leading in that. We want to continue to do that. There are other people running on the Democratic side. These are friends of mine. We simply think that we not only bring a better vision of this, I think we bring a better capacity to bring more people to us, because I know in a room like this I'm preaching to the choir, but the choir needs to sing outside of that. There are literally tens of thousands of people in southern Minnesota that voted for President Trump, and I will guarantee you they did not sign up for what they see right now. I guarantee you that they're going to not see any benefit from this tax bill. They're still going to be struggling to figure out what we do about health care, and they're concerned about what's happening in their public schools. They're not going to hear any positive from the other side. It's our chance to give them that hope. It's our chance to get them engaged again. It's our chance to get people off the sidelines. It's our chance to make sure these districts, and there's one coming up. We have a special election in Tony Cornish's seat that was emptied outside of Mankato. And I tell people this, I see it's been written in the paper, this is staunchly Republican area, representing Corey by this, whatever. I've got 61% of the vote in that district before. So that thing is winnable. It's winnable with the right message. It's winnable down here. I see it every time, we know it. And I've run on this. The wind is going to be at our back, but we need to see that as an opportunity to work even harder than it was. To see that this is not going to be like 2016, and it's not going to be like 2016 for many reasons. And you elect Thomas, we elect people in some of these state houses, we take back the state house, we win this governor's race, and then as someone said, the playing defense that Mark Dayton's had to do, you know, Mark was a goalie, that's a euphemism of that, he played goalie in that, whatever. I played offense, and that's what I want to be on in football. I would rather us start throwing some passes downfield and start making some of those investments that we have not been able to as we held our own. So thanks for being here. My campaign, Eric is here, I'll help you sign up. If you're not getting emails, sign up. If you're getting too many, just ignore some of them, but keep on there. If you're able to come to caucuses, come to caucuses. If you want to contribute to the campaign, please contribute to the campaign. One of the things that I can tell you is we're investing the bulk of our money in people on the ground and in personnel. We've got organizers in every congressional district. We've trained, how many? Probably well over 100 organizers and campaign folks who will continue to train and invest in them. We are by far the biggest campaign, we're the most robust campaign, I think we're probably the most well-planned campaign, and it's coming from grassroots folks. So, thank you all.
Oh, I want one.
Kristen, can I get one with you? Yeah. In front of this? Thank you. I'm going to get this out here. I'm going to buy one of these. Is Eric here? Can we take one?
It's working in
What you want?
I'm just holding very
I can do a card.
Here you go. Can you take one? Yeah, you. Oh, yeah, you're out.
It looks like this.
All right. We're getting one Thomas. You're getting one with this and then Thomas here. All right. You're getting I get one for you.
good. How are you?
Yeah, we will. That's your promise. Come to business. There's got to be some.
You want to go out 35 minutes? You want to get back with it? Yeah, yeah. good.
Probably in the next part of the year. Maybe February, March. This is kind of a standard version right now. This one's got this one's 55. This
I know he does.
Yes. Yeah. I had one governor.
Good work.
We're going someplace outdoor.
Pretty soon they're talking to each other.
Well, I need check out.
How are you?
I'm good. Good.
Andy really likes you.
Oh, I like Andy, so you made a good choice.